funny though, like when you're talking about men too, it seems like almost men have it worse now. Of there's all these ways of women feel like we can talk about these things. Seems like men don't often have ways like avenues to talk about, feeling weird in your body or feeling like being bigger or any of these kind of things or being shorter, any of those things. Like it seems like now almost there's like so much conversation for women and maybe not that much for men. Do you guys feel that way?
Definitely.
Not to throw it back
no,
on you.
No. It's a great question. And I think that, as Joe was saying earlier, like the kind of the circle we've cultivated here, whether it's our close friends or people we talk to in the podcast, I think that at this point in my life with Joe and these other people, I have so much stronger of a support group to do stuff like that and talk about stuff like that. And I have some other great friends too, like around the country and from college and stuff like that. But in general, like in terms of what we've cultivated here, I think in person, at least, it's much more, it's much easier to talk about these things as opposed to like when I was growing up or certain other friend groups. But yeah, I think for men, there's definitely, because I think also in the culture right now, there's a push to like return to masculinity in certain ways, because I think like there's all sorts of different movements that now men feel like, there's a lot of angry like white men specifically out there that feel like underrepresented or like victimized. And I think that like there's a push to be like extra masculine. But, what does it really mean to be masculine, right? Is it, I think vulnerability is a huge part of that, and, having emotions and all that stuff. So I think in general, yes, it's hard for men to do it. Not saying harder than for women, but hard to do it. But I think we've cultivated like a really good support group to like be able to talk about stuff like this openly.
Yeah.
That was I don't even know what the hell I just said there. I blacked out.
Loved it.
I was
Loved every
rambling
second
like
of
a
it.
motherfucker. But
Yeah, that was great. And I could actually personally say with Steve specifically, when we first started doing this, I think maybe I was a little ahead of trying to like be vulnerable and like, putting that message out. And maybe it was like me just forcing it. But he's kind of naturally just really evolved into himself. And even using the word vulnerable, he would never personally say that. And I think it's pretty cool. And I think there's a stigma for men, right? Like you have to be this masculine guy and you can never feel weakness. And yeah, I think it's not true, right? Like, of course you want to be the strong rock for, your partner. And like, that's how, majority of us want it to be. But I think the most beautiful thing about a man should be understanding how other people are going through something emotional and how can you best handle other people's emotions and be a sense of support for them. And I think that that's really the way I see like a modern day man, right? And we always talk about the balance of like equality and chivalry. Like I'm still so chivalrous, and I think that most women want men to be chivalrous, but being chivalrous doesn't mean that you can't see a woman as your equal, right? And I think molding those together is kind of where the world should be, in my opinion, and kind of where I hope that we kind of reset and just fall into that bucket.
Yeah, I really loved what you said about like kind of being a sounding board for emotions and just shutting them down. Because I think like, yeah, like at least most men I grew up around were very much like feelings, absolutely not. Jail immediately. It's really cool to hear you be like, no, like as a man, like the modern day man, the goal is to kind of to understand those things and be open to those things and not just immediately put those in a box and pretend they don't exist until you explode and punch a wall or something.
Yeah, and I think, right, we use the word support, right? Like a man should support the woman, right? But what does that mean, right? Are you supporting them financially? Sure, that's great. But are you supporting them emotionally? And like you said, if a woman's going to have different emotions, right? We're just geared differently, right? And how do you handle the woman you love's emotions? And if you can really, really take yourself out of that situation, take your emotion and reaction out of that situation, being there in a sense of sounding board and support is kind of like a real man, right? And kind of swallowing your pride, being like, okay, I have an easy solution to this and I could argue with her and be right. But if I'm right, then she's wrong and it's me going against the person I love. Why not just be like, how can I help you? Let's talk about this. I'm here. I'm going to listen and I'm going to be a sense of comfortability for you in this moment.
I love that. That's really cool.